were two things and two things alone that I didn't like about Atlanta. One was obvious, the offense not scoring any touchdowns. The other, not so obvious, but maybe part of that. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. George Pickens was terrific. The remainder of the wide receiver depth chart, I don't even know if they were good or bad because they just weren't utilized. Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson combining for 2 catches for 7 yards. Is that on them? Is that on Arthur Smith? Is that on nobody, really? Meaning, is it just how they're regarded or trusted by the coaching staff, by everyone involved in schematics and approach? Is it that there was going to be so much running that if you were going to have targets, they were going to be to George or to Pat Freiermuth? George was targeted 7 times, caught 6. Freiermuth was targeted 4 times, caught them all. Or is it just that in a Smith offense, as was the case when he was with the Falcons, he doesn't really look to a wide receiver beyond WR1? Whatever the case, it was maybe the one thing about the offense other than the result, the macro result of not getting across the goal line, that had me thinking, boy, there's a low ceiling here. You know, there's a cap, and it's going to be really hard to break through that unless either Omar Khan goes out and gets somebody, and heaven knows he tried, or somebody internally rises up. Well, now, enter Roman Wilson. Wilson's missed a pretty good amount of time going back to Latrobe, the preseason, and week 1, but he was back on the field yesterday for the first practice of Denver week, and he looks like he might be able to go against the Broncos. In fact, he sounded a lot like he's expecting to.
I'm going to be pretty excited. You know, it's something that since I was a kid, you know, playing my first NFL game and just finally getting the opportunity. But, you know, all I really think about at night is coming in here the next day and, you know, putting in work and, you know, doing everything I can to better myself.
As I always try to be cautious regarding rookies, I'll double that in this case by emphasizing that Wilson really missed a ton of reps already this summer. And he'll be trying to bounce back from that ankle that was initially hurt a month ago. But just as I've been confident in saying stuff about the players picked around him in this class, notably Peyton Wilson, who was taken in the round after Roman Wilson, there's upside there. There's also, and maybe this matters the most in this scenario, a fit. When healthy, when at his peak, Wilson's exactly the type of wide receiver that this team's missing at the moment. Someone who can catch the ball consistently from a possession standpoint, coming out of the slot, picking on linebacker coverage, running a little, traffic or subterfuge across the middle, opening up space for other guys, maybe for Pickens, maybe for Freiermuth, maybe for somebody else. He can do that, and he'll do it not just willingly, but eagerly. He loves that part of the field. It was one of the things that had the Steelers as excited as they were about him upon drafting him. Loves the action, and that's where the action is. Now, he also can make other types of plays, including deep balls and other things that he was able to show when he was in college, but, one thing at a time. I don't know that he'll be challenged to do something like that right away. But I want to throw this into the mix, too, because if I had 2 things that bugged me in Atlanta, I'd throw a 2.5 on this, and that's that both Pickens and Austin blew it with blocks that they needed to throw that could have resulted in significant plays, one of them a Najee Harris touchdown that never happened. And that's not okay. You can live with it from George. You can't live with it from anybody else in that room, and even with George, you don't want to live with it. So having someone else out on the field who can legitimately help with the running game will be a benefit unto itself and will be a reason to have Wilson out there rather than Austin or Jefferson or anybody else on that chart. I'm hoping it happens. I really am. I would love to see this offense not only get to the end zone, but also allow everyone to believe in it all the way. And most importantly, on the inside, I think there's faith in what Smith wants to do. I think there's faith in most of the talent, but I don't know that exists at that position other than George. And this would matter a lot. When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar. Today's J1Q comes from Jack, who says, "Hey DK, you know what I enjoyed the most about the offense? Play action. I feel like we haven't seen a good chunk of play action in years, and to see Justin Fields turn his back, fake handoffs, run bootlegs, it was fun to watch, and it was effective. Who'd have thought? Hopefully, Russell Wilson will be able to keep that momentum going and turn some of those opportunities into touchdowns." Well, Jack, this is one area where you're not going to hear me favor one quarterback over the other. Even as I'm very much in favor of Fields getting an opportunity, it's impossible to not acknowledge that Wilson's been a play action, his master at overstatement. He's been really, really good at it for a really, really long time. It's not something he'd have to add to his repertoire, but Fields has been pretty good at it as well. And I'm as with you as I could possibly be on applauding the usage of play action, the type of usage that Arthur Smith instilled into the offense really over the course of the whole summer, not just for the game in Atlanta. And I feel like over time, it's going to be that much more effective once you have the offensive line find its bearings, get Isaac Seumalo back, maybe, depending on how things go this weekend, get Dan Moore back eventually if you need more. If you don't, and you've set yourself up with Troy Fautanu at right tackle and Broderick Jones at left tackle, as it appears will be the case against the Broncos, and they do well, then the next step, and I'm not changing the subject, trust me on this, will be to have the offensive line start executing some of the more intricate schemes that Smith wants to have with his zone blocking and so forth. Right now, as I reported for you last week, they're trying to keep things as simple as possible. Just way too many kids out there. You even mentioned Spencer Anderson making his first NFL start and actually doing pretty well at left guard. Once you start mixing play action with the more elaborate zone blocking, and running backs have that many more options, and the opposing defense has that many more options to consider, now you're getting a much clearer picture of what this offense wants to be, regardless of who's at quarterback. But then, I wouldn't be me if I didn't mention that having Fields be a constant and very real threat to run the ball himself adds even that much more. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Steelers. Don't forget, by the way, to tune into the new Double Shot show that I'm offering up at 4 p.m. every weekday. Yes, that's p.m. It's aimed at your commute home, or you're walking the dog later in the day, or your exercise regimen, or whatever it is. 4 p.m. Eastern Time is a pretty nice time, I'd think, for that sort of thing. I can promise you that it won't be repeat stuff from the morning. It's going to be fresh, based on new information, new thoughts as the day goes along. Same place you find this show. Thanks so much for listening.